So in terms of DCU, for some of you would be very familiar, because I know some of you may be graduates, and if so, you're very welcome back. For those who aren't, the business school has about 3,300 students now. As you can see there, about 2,600 are undergraduates and about 750 postgraduate. And this program is a part-time postgraduate program. We have a very diverse community in the school, both with the faculty, but particularly among the student body, with 60 nationalities, and we're well established now. I think we tend still to think of ourselves as relatively new, but we have almost 20,000 graduates in various roles. And graduates of this program, in fact, are in many of them are in key roles, because it was a program that was always targeted at those, certainly originally targeted at those who were envisaged a career in HR and would have aspired to senior leadership roles in HR. In fact, there are many HR directors in Ireland who are graduates of the program, because it's been running for 20 years and more. There's lots of other information about it, about the school here. I suppose the most relevant piece from those considering the program is accreditation as well. So the school is one of the 5% of business schools worldwide who have achieved AACSB accreditation. Our MBA is an AMBA accredited, again, that's a worldwide, globally recognized accreditation. And this program, also graduates of the program are eligible for CIPD membership as well. So in terms of accreditation, I suppose our investment in accreditation is to reassure those who assure those who come to us that we operate to the highest global standards, and that your qualification carries the same weight as the top schools worldwide. And so that's about the school. I suppose just coming back to this topic of interesting times, this is attributed to being a Chinese curse, but actually I've been looking into it, and apparently there's no evidence that it came from China at all, but was generally attributed to. So may you live in interesting times. Well, it sounds like a blessing and a curse, I suppose, and certainly we've seen lots of interesting times this year. And as companies and organizations strive to adapt, we've learned a lot about ourselves, I think, and learned a lot about how we manage people. What's interesting is that most of the issues this time are in the previous crisis were financial, I suppose, and therefore much of the leadership came from the chief financial officers of organizations. What we're hearing people say to us is that most of the issues this time are people issues, as you well know, and probably many of you have been helping to deal with them. And so in that sense, this may be a time when HR is coming of age in terms of its leadership in organizations, because it's really the chief human resource officers of many of the major organizations, and indeed smaller ones as well, who are providing leadership, to whom people are turning and asking for, what should we do next? When should we bring people back? How should we bring people back? What should we do? Should we go back to the way we were working before? All of these questions are HR questions, really, and it's an opportunity for HR to achieve its leadership potential. So there are certainly interesting times, and one in which a qualification of this type, I think, would be particularly valuable, and the opportunity to reflect and develop an evidence base for decision making is something that we would have always valued, and I think is increasingly recognized in most organizations and by most HR professionals as well. So the program, these are the kind of the program learning outcomes, as we call them in the university system. And excuse me, they're kind of summarized really. So at the graduates of the program will have acquired mastery in problem diagnosis and the development of solutions guided by theoretical theory and research. They'll also have an ability to adopt a broad strategic perspective rather than a narrow functional one. And this is something that the program was always very strong on. There are no HR courses on the program. There isn't a course on recruitment and selection or training and development or performance management. It's kind of assumed that people coming in this program will, if they need to know those things, will have gone and learned them previously, or found out what they know about them from experience, what they need to know about them. So really where this program is really about linking how you do those things and the way in which you go about them to the purpose of the organization, to the strategy of the organization, and to the operational model of the organization in a way that's efficient and effective and brings the best for the people in the organization. Increased awareness of how career goals can be realized when using a variety of personal and professional development techniques. That's also kind of embedded in the program, and Patrick will talk a little bit about that as well. And finally, an advanced ability to use skills to conduct, implement, and communicate research. So, and I'll talk about particular revamp of one of the modules there that's directed towards that. But the idea of using, not only having the ability to conduct research, but to communicate that research in a way that will influence the direction of organizations is an essential skill for the modern day leader. And whether that's a HR professional or somebody with responsibility for managing people in a different area of the organization, it's equally relevant. So these are the things that at the program level, not the individual modules, but overall, most of the modules need to, and we look at this at an individual module level and say, well, how is it contributing to the program learning outcomes? And that's how the university system ensures that we have a coherence about what we do during the program and indeed between modules. So the design of the program looks like this. The content, as you can see in year one, semester one has 2 modules, one Patrick's 10 credit leadership and change module, and Professor David Collings teaches talent management in semester 1 as well. Semester 2 then we have a mix of strategic HRM, which is usually taught by Professor Dal Conway, and coaching and mentoring, which I have taught myself and others teach it as well, and research methods. So you can see that your building blocks are there for your methods in year 1 to make sure that you have the building blocks for your research project, dissertation in year 2. In year 2 then, we have a new module, which is contemporary issues in HRM and talent management. And that's been introduced because we're aware, we are the most research active HR faculty in Ireland, and one of the most active in Europe in a way. And yet we weren't convinced that we were getting that research into the classroom quickly enough or with sufficient emphasis in the program design, and that would have been an aspiration of the original design. So we've introduced this module, and that will be where faculty members who are conducting interesting research that's relevant to practice will come and present it in the general space of HR and talent management. And then it'll be up to the students to focus on areas of particular interest to them. So we would hope that would mean that you're not only evidence-based, but you have the very best current knowledge that we have to share with you from a group that are professionally recognized as leading researchers. Next module is business analytics and storytelling, another new module. Many of you in HR will be familiar with the requirements for being more competent in the area of using data to drive decision making in HR and to inform the decision making of the wider organization. And the storytelling piece of that is really important in that being able to, we're not trying to create data analytics experts here. You probably have in your organization people who are specialists in that, but it's really to understand what data you need, how the data and evidence can be used, and then to tell the story of that data to influence policy and direction of your organization. The last 2 modules there in the final semester, strategy, organization, innovation, again back to the strategic perspective, and employment law and negotiations, again emphasis on a core skills requirement for people in managing people in organizations, whether in HR or elsewhere. Final 25 credits then, so the 90 credits in total. You can see the credit numbers down the right hand side of the columns, and then the final 25 credits are for the dissertation. So the dissertation is a 13,000 word submission at the end of the program, and is usually done over the course of kind of the latter half of year 1 and particularly throughout year 2. And again, I'll be happy to take questions about any of that as we go along, or indeed at the end. Just in terms of introducing some of the folks here who teach on the program, I think this is a particular strength of the school and the program is that we have some of the top people in these islands who are active researchers on the right-hand side, or right-hand side as you look. Professor Adele Conway, who teaches the Strategic HRM module. Adele is a globally acknowledged researcher in the area of employee engagement, particular focus on the public service in Ireland as well, very well known and very highly regarded. The middle person here is Professor David Collings, whose work in talent management may be known to some of you, and Dave was recently honoured by elevation to the Royal Irish Academy, which is the highest honour we can attain as academics and researchers in Ireland, and that he was the first person from the business school to be awarded that. So that's something we all share pride in. And as I've mentioned, Patrick, who has been very patient listening to me, has taken time out of his very busy schedule to join us here. And just so that you would be aware, the two of his books are shown here, but I think I've lost count, but I think there may be 13 or 14 books on leadership. So Patrick's been an acknowledged thought leader in the space of leadership and is very innovative around, for instance, the book on leadership in the arts, lessons from the arts for leadership. And so he brings a unique perspective to the topic and unique insights from a lifetime study. And so, Patrick, if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about your own module and about your
happy to do that. I wonder, could we switch on the videos? We don't have any videos playing as such, so I don't think there'll be a broadband problem. Can we do that, Kira? The participants.
Oh, I see. Just
yeah. Good. Be good to see some faces, you know. Okay. Very good. Very good. Okay. As John mentioned, I teach a course on leadership and change, and I'll talk to you first about the leadership part of that course, and then I'll say something about the change elements within it as well. As John said, done quite a bit of research on leadership and indeed change, and those are brought center stage into the module on leadership and change. And there's 3 levels of analysis. The first is understanding yourself as a leader, okay? Secondly, understanding the role of the leader in teams, and secondly, the role of the leader in organizations. So it's a multi-level perspective. In order to help yourself understand yourself as a leader, we do an exercise which involves 3 components: a life story, where you write your life story. We do a 360-degree leadership evaluation, which is based on an instrument called the Multi-Factor Leadership Questionnaire, which is administered by a company in the US called Mind Garden. And that's completed by a number of people that you nominate, between 6 to 8 people from your workplace typically. And thirdly, you also examine what your future leadership development plan might be. So by doing your life story, you understand where you've come from and the influences of childhood and adolescence and early adult life on your leadership style. The 360-degree leadership evaluation tells you where you are at the present moment, and the development plan that you present uses that information and says, okay, people have identified strengths, of course, and they've also identified development needs. How are you going to amplify those strengths, and how are you going to enhance and build on your development needs? So it's a very proactive, very positive, very practical exercise. The life story people find fascinating because they never think of doing it, and you know, lots of people who write it up actually give it to their family afterwards. And one faculty colleague of mine told me that well, maybe it was a cheap Christmas present, but one guy presented it to his mother on Christmas Day, and she said, after she read it, you know, of course I know you, but I didn't know your story. And that's interesting, I think, as well. Someone who used that story or that approach, one of our MBA graduates, was J.O. from the Dublin football team. And he actually credited that exercise with him developing his book several years later about his life and time. So interesting. So that's the other thing we study. We study obviously great leaders and persuasive leaders, and we also look at the role of the leader in change situations. So we would cover a number of change models. For example, Kotter's change model. We would look at the issue of change readiness. We would look at the issue of mobilizing people and purpose-based organization. So it's a course that looks at leadership and change, but it's really, it looks at leadership and change as two sides of the one coin in its approach. And most people find it interesting. And you also get to bring your own situations to class to talk about as well in a in a private and environment where people can be trusted. So there's tremendous trust really develops over the course of the 2 years within the program, and that allows people to talk about the issues that are affecting them and indeed affecting their organization, and get some advice, not from just the lecturers, but more importantly from their peers, many of whom are very experienced people as well. Okay. Thanks, John.
That's just great, and I think you get a sense there of how these kind of relatively abstract kind of learning outcomes are translated into something very real and very practical in the hands of somebody like Patrick. So it is we're as a school, I suppose our ethos is that we're very interested in things that can be useful to people who are working in organizations. And so there's an emphasis throughout the program, I think, on evidence-based, research-based thinking, but that is of use to organizations. So we're not too interested in abstract theory for its own sake in this context. And so that's something of the ethos of the program as well. The other point there that Patrick made very well, I think, is that there's a lot of the learning comes from your classmates in a program like this. People bring a huge amount of experience and knowledge to the program, and so we deliver the program in a way that is consistent with that being shared. So whether you're working in teams outside the classroom, but also during the classroom, it's very much a dialogue around cases and topics and current challenges rather than a presentational thing, which you might have experienced at undergraduate level.
Hi, John.
So,
can I ask a very quick question? Just
yes, please do.
Jenny here. So in terms of the program delivery, do you anticipate that some of the learning will now be done online remotely as opposed to classroom-based learning, given the COVID environment? Indeed.
And I'm just going to, what I'll tell you is, I'm going to just tell, for those not familiar with the general shape, that I'm just going to, this slide, and then the next slide is about what's actually happening in the current, what's planned for the first semester. So that I'll give you specifics on that in a moment, Jenny. Thanks for the question.
Thanks, yeah. Apologies. I have a work commitment I have to, so I'll have to jump off, but I can catch up.
Oh no. Well, let me do that now then, because yeah, absolutely. Semester one will be delivered primarily online. The university has announced that as a policy decision, and it's based simply on the space constraints of trying to maintain social distancing. So most, if not probably all, of the teaching for semester one will be online. We would like to make some arrangement for the group who are taking the program and meeting and working together for the first time to get together, whether that's for a lecture or whether it's for some sort of networking event or something. My goal would be to ensure that happens during semester one, but otherwise, we're all being asked for all of our teaching next semester to be prepared to deliver it online. And obviously we're subject to change as the environmental and the rules change by the government. Semester one has been reduced to 10 weeks to reflect, I suppose, the additional complexity of arranging all that, and will be commencing the week of October 5th. Semester 2 has been brought forward. It usually starts in early February. It's been brought forward to start on January 18th and will conclude in mid-April as a result. So we don't know for semester 2 what proportion or if any of the teaching will be done in the classroom versus online. Does that answer your question in terms of that piece, Jenny?
Absolutely, it does, John. And sorry to railroad there.
Not at all. No. I was fully planning to cover it anyway, so it's just as easy to do it now. Okay. In terms of timetabling, I don't have the timetabling is done by the school because it has to take account of all sorts of variables, and obviously it's a little more complicated than usual this year because they're planning for online. But traditionally the program is delivered on Wednesday evening, usually between 5 and 9:30 p.m. or in semester 2 between 4 and 9:30. I'm not sure yet whether we'll be able to stick with that, but that would be my preference, is that we've generally told people that that's the schedule and we'd like to stick with it. And I will, if you've applied, you'll be updated regularly on any changes to that or any proposed amendments. There's 2 semesters each year. There's assessment for all modules, and this program is continuous assessment. There are no examinations, and the continuous assessment typically is a mix of individuals. So for a module, you would generally have, not always, but most modules would have both an individual assignment and some sort of group piece of work as well. So typically a group presentation and then an individual assignment. And the dissertation, as I mentioned, is 13,000 words, which could be submitted at the end of year 2. So why this program? I suppose the pitch for the program is really that the business school leads the HR field in Ireland through insightful research. And we have a deserved reputation, I think, for HR education and have influenced many of the leaders in the field. The updated structure of the program, I think, is an improvement and is better aligned with the needs of the environment now, extending it into leadership and talent. The future skills needs, we've done quite a bit of research on future skills needs of HR professionals and of people in general, and we believe that the program is well designed to deliver on those future skills needs. Qualify for associate membership of the CIPD, as I mentioned, and the program is designed for people who are busy, who are working full time, who in many cases also have family, children, and dependent relatives to take care of as well. You can customize the learning to a great extent through choice of topics for your assignments, and indeed, of course, through the choice of the dissertation as well. So this concept of individualized learning pathways is reflected in the design of the program, and you have a great deal of discretion about where you focus your efforts so that you become kind of expert in areas where you're particularly is value to you. And the network of alumni and indeed your classmates themselves become a network. And most of the classes we know, graduate classes, still meet regularly, even those going back 10 or 15 years, still get together a few times a year to share a bevy and to maintain that contact and use each other as a valuable resource throughout their careers. So further information, if you'd like to apply, the PAC system, you can just email us if you have any questions about any of that, and I'm happy to take queries about it. If you have a question about whether you're qualified or not, by all means, feel free to email me rather than having to go through the whole formal process. And so if there are any other questions,